my name is Dr. Rona Iskander. I am a dentist based in London. I have my own practice in Chelsea and I'm very passionate about what I do and I'm very happy to be here today. So I actually contracted COVID in December 2020. Obviously the nature of my job, you can't help it. So I was in constant contact with patients, and although we had like full PPE, you never know what's going to happen. I also live with my sister who had COVID. I then came home one day and my sister was like, oh, I have COVID, and she was panicking. My nail technician called me and said, Rona, I have COVID. And then one of my patients called me. And within 5 days, I actually contracted COVID. What is important to note as well is that a couple of weeks before that, I actually went through a big medical procedure because I decided to freeze my eggs. So my dad's a gynecologist, so he was like, Rona, if you're not ready to have children, you better get on and start freezing your eggs. So that procedure was quite harrowing on my body. I found there were a lot of hormones pumped into me. I felt very weak, I felt very lethargic. And then contracting COVID really shortly after that really had a negative effect on my body. So whilst I had COVID, the symptoms weren't that severe. For example, I didn't suffer from any loss of taste or smell. I didn't have any problems with coughing or anything like that. But what I did experience was severe muscle ache and fatigue, to the point that I just felt like I wanted to push and squeeze my muscles constantly. And with the fatigue, I needed to sleep about 14 hours a day. They say that the acute phase is usually about 2 to 3 weeks at the most. But unfortunately, months went by and the symptoms weren't going away. I could barely walk. I needed to sleep all the time. I had to force myself to go to work when all I wanted to do was be sleeping. In fact, in between patients, I kind of put my head down and start, resting by the computer. I used to walk all the time from work, go and be very active. But even in the gym, I could barely cope with my sessions. So I started to feel really, really bad and I didn't know what to do. Now, I've heard about the clinic because one of my patients happened to come in and she was telling me that she was going through a spiritual life transformation. And when she did that, she came to this clinic and she talked about the other benefits like weight loss and so forth. But more for her, it was about a mental journey and how the clinic reset her. Moreover, I had another friend of mine that was like, it's amazing, but she said to me, don't do the fasting, you have to eat because the food is absolutely incredible. But I decided to do the fasting because although I've tried fasting at home, I found that it didn't work for me at home. I used to get even more sick because I think that perhaps it wasn't so much the discipline, it's the stress around you. And I thought I have to be in the right environment to ensure that fasting is effective for me. So that's what led me to here in July 2020 and July 2021. And I was like a zombie when I came to the clinic, to be honest. I think I was about 20% myself when I arrived. So during the first day, the benefits, I would say, were life-changing. And I don't say that lightly because I, as I said, was a zombie when I arrived. And I just remember being curled up in a little ball. The weather was amazing. I think it was like 35 degrees or something that day. And I couldn't move. My body was paralyzed from the fatigue and the muscle ache. I also wasn't feeling great because I'd put on weight more from stress rather than overeating. And I just couldn't do anything. I didn't want to socialize. And I felt very hungry and fatigued the first day. The second and third day, the same symptoms. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I kind of sat in my room. And then after the third day, my body was easing into it. And the energy started to return a little bit. And then I saw a real transformation in my energy. And then the muscle ache completely went away, which was phenomenal because nothing else had worked. I was getting weekly massages, seeing the physio at home, seeing the osteo, seeing the chiropractor, you name it, nothing was working. But suddenly I was like, my muscles don't ache anymore. This is amazing. And the tiredness goes away. So towards the end of the week, I think I was feeling about 80% back to my normal self, which was pretty remarkable for me. But also there was a massive spiritual element because I felt that I was really connecting with my mind and there was just so much clarity. So after I left the Buhunga clinic, I came home, and my habits have always been good, to be honest. You know, I have a balanced diet and I exercise, but I was in a state of really low self-confidence, if I'm honest, because I'd put on about 4 or 5 kilos. And, you know, people might say, oh, you won't notice it on you, but you notice it on yourself. And nothing was getting rid of that weight. Nothing was doing it. You know, I was exercising even more. I was eating, and then the fasting actually reset me into a balance in a way, because I came home, I stuck to my normal diet. You know, of course, if I feel like a piece of chocolate, I'll have it, but I'm not binging. And, you know, if I didn't feel like training at home, I wouldn't train. And what was amazing was that when I came back the second time, as I am here, I've put on 700 grams in 6 months. And that really shows you how sustainable it is with a balanced lifestyle. And I think a lot of people have a hesitation about that. But, you know, that's 700 grams, you know, you're like, that's water weight pretty much, you know. So for me, I was like, wow, this has really worked for my body. So it's just transformed my confidence, my illnesses, and just the way that I view fasting as a whole. There is definitely an element of almost feeling addicted to this place, and I just thought, this is my reset, and I want to do this at least once or twice a year now for the rest of my life if I can, because for me it's so transformative inside and in my mind, and the way that I feel about myself, I wanted to come back. Furthermore, because I'd gone back to feeling about 80–85%, I wanted to push my body and see if I could get to that kind of 100% that I originally had pre-COVID, pre-egg freezing and so forth. It has been such a different journey this time, because I've had energy since day 2 here. You know, when I first arrived, I had the preparation day, and then on the second day I was like, right, let's go to the gym. I didn't have that the first time. So I'm like fascinated by the science, because I'm like, okay, is it because I'm cured of long COVID that I can do this? Or is it because my body's used to fasting now? Does this mean the more you fast, the easier it gets? You know, so there's so much science behind it, and being, you know, a doctor, I want to know more. And I'm like, okay, this is fascinating, and how your body responds and how it's quicker. So it's been really great coming the second time, and pushes me want to come 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and so forth. I would say that my body currently feels at 95% of myself pre-COVID, which is amazing for me considering how bad I felt. So for me, I think the really important message that I want to give people is that this place isn't just about losing weight. And I think that that's a massive misconception, particularly where people like fasting, you're just starving yourself. It's starvation. No, it's not starvation. It's so much more than that, because you know that, first of all, that there's a finite amount of time that you have to do this, but also, really importantly, it's about your mind. And I think that's what's been a really exceptional personal journey for me. I've been kind of going on a self-development journey, and I feel that this place forces you to sit with your mind. You're not focusing on food, you're not allowed to have your phone, but also it gives you all of these outlets of the things that you can do. So for example, I haven't painted since I was literally about 10 years old. I was never good at art, but you call it art therapy. And I thought, okay, let's go, let's try the class. And it's an expression. I'm still terrible at art, you know, but sitting with the art teacher, painting with other people, you know, having your mind focused on other things, that's been like healing for me in a way. Going to the sound therapy as well, going to the lectures, you know, doing things like meditation and yoga. That's not a strain on your body, but it forces you to sit with yourself. For me, that's been so much more than just starvation, right? That's about sitting with your mind and reflecting. And I've actually been journaling every morning as well. So for me, that was a habit I wanted to get into in the UK, and I just got busy, you know, because you've got other things to do in the morning. I always prioritized high impact exercise. I always prioritized running around. I mean, meditation on my app was like, okay, come on, like 3 minutes, when is it up, when is it up? Now I'm like really sitting with my breath. So I feel this facility just harnesses so much more than not eating. It's just more than that. I think for me also, as a medical professional, I was attracted to this place more than any of the other clinics all over the world, because there are other clinics, because of the medical input and the doctors that you have. This is not just a facility run by, you know, dare I say it, but people without qualifications. You know, this is not somebody that's like, hey, this works for me, so I'm going to set up. This is science tested, and that's what I loved about it. You know, the fact that a doctor is watching you the whole way through, a nurse, the fact that they're really monitoring your bloods, you know, your urine samples, that's really, really important to me. And I actually think that there's a really exciting part of all of this, because it's going to be something of the future where people can think, fasting is going to be used as part of medical treatment, not just as something where people need to detox or something where people need to just chill out. And what I think is incredible about Bujinga is that, you know, everybody here has a story. You know, people are here to heal. They're not here to just lose weight. You know, even people that have a lot of weight to lose, they have a story. How did they get there? How did they acquire type 2 diabetes? How did they get heart disease? We know now that stress and your mental health affects your physical health, right? So this place, it's healing your mind, your body, and your soul. And I think that that needs to be integrated into modern medicine, and it's made me personally passionate about it as somebody that wants to take that home to my own clients. I already have plans to come back. I have implanted the 20th of July as the week that I want to come back. And the reason it's because it's a week before my best friend's birthday. And in the summer I did that, and I went straight to Ibiza where she was celebrating. It was the chilled Ibiza, don't worry, not the crazy Ibiza. But I had such a state of well-being and such a state of euphoria that for me, you know, being able to go and integrate with my friends, like, and not go straight back home, was such a nice feeling. And I'll be coming back here once or twice a year if I can. Really, I do mean that. And it might sound excessive to some people, but you know, it's something that is healing for me and so, so powerful.